All right, I don't know how this has taken 28 years because I have been a fan when Kellyanne was Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, the best pollster in America and doing all the stuff that she has been doing. I can't believe that this has taken me 28 years to land this interview. So it shows you that things that are worth it are worth waiting for. Kellyanne Conway is here, the senior counselor to the President of the United States. How do you like that? And what doesn't get said enough, and it is, she has two strikes against her because of this bizarro world that we live in. Number one, campaign manager and victorious, the audacious audacity to be the victorious campaign manager for Donald Trump, and also being perceived by the Democrat hating Trump media that we have that just treats her terribly. But what I respect so much is she goes into the lion's den and eats the lion. So anyhow, she's home. This is like personal travel, if you will, attending an event here in New Jersey. And Kellyanne, I can't believe that it's taken us almost 3 decades to do an interview together. Welcome.
Well, Harry, that's embarrassing. I'll commit to you now. Anytime you invite me, I'll be on.
Oh, you're the best.
Say the word.
You are the best. I got to say this to you. You broke the glass ceiling. And if you were Susan Estridge, if you were a Democrat, my God, you'd be on every magazine. I mean, it would be unbelievable. The first woman in American history in 230 some years, victorious campaign manager. They don't ever mention it, do they?
Well, sometimes, and I'll tell you what. The most important piece of that is the rest of the sentence, comma, and it is Donald J. Trump who put me in that position.
Correct.
To be able to succeed and prevail. And when history is written, the entire sentence must be included, because it's very natural for President Trump to elevate women in positions of power and management and executive leadership. You know that firsthand in Atlantic City, but it's just been very natural for him to do it in New York real estate in the 70s and 80s when people basically laughed at him that he would dare give females a chance at the highest levels to go and make deals with him, to go and sit in the big meetings, not just answer the phone or type up what he was saying, which itself are positions that should be lauded. And then he did it in the Trump organization. He did it in the Trump campaign. He's done it in the Trump cabinet, the Trump White House. It's just a natural place for him in terms of elevating women to leadership. And, you know, Harry, I watch these Democrats running for president and Democrats running their mouths and our, quote, powerful female Speaker of the House, who Nancy Pelosi is unable to control her caucus. It's running away from her towards socialism, toward leftism, towards wasting our time and our money as taxpayers on investigations and insinuations and impeachment nonsense. She doesn't have control over her caucus, and she doesn't have control over her temper when it comes to President Trump. And the one thing I really admire about President Trump, the skill that I try to take into those interviews in the so-called Lion's Den, it's twofold. Number one, cut out the middleman and speak directly to the people. My audience is always the people. I want to make sure that they have the full information they need to make decisions in their everyday lives. I want to make sure our military knows that because of President Trump's leadership, they just got the 3rd consecutive pay raise on his watch. I want the veterans to know that because of VA Choice, the VA Mission Act, they can go access private care now and not worry about reimbursement, not worry about paying for it. So if you're one of those veterans who cannot access timely quality care through the VA system, and most say they can, most are happy, but if you're one of them, you're among the 2.2 million veterans who have taken advantage of this program since just last June when enrollment started. I want to make sure people who are addled with drug dependency or other substance misuse disorders, I want them to know that those overdose deaths are down now for the first time in 3 decades. We have a new findtreatment.gov locator where you type it in, you customize it by gender, whether you're a veteran, by age, by treatment type, by insurance type, and it will avail you of these recovery services, these treatment services. I want people to know that our law enforcement, whether we're back in the blue close to home, our police officers, our sheriffs, whether we're talking about Border Patrol or ICE agents, we are backing we are backing our law enforcement in a way where they feel more deeply respected and better resourced now because of the president. And the second thing I've learned from the president is that you just barrel forward. You cannot allow your naysayers and critics to diminish you, to denigrate, to castigate you, to tell you who you are. And ladies and gentlemen, nobody can make you feel badly without your permission, so don't grant it. I feel privileged every single day, Harry. I am a South Jersey girl through and through, capital S, capital J. I grew up in Acton, New Jersey, in a house of 4 Italian Catholic women, my mom, her mom, and 2 of my mother's unmarried sisters and her other sister from Hamilton, New Jersey, very involved in my upbringing. What a wonderful way to grow up. South Jersey's version of the Golden Girls, I call them. I went to St. Joe's in Hamilton from kindergarten through 12th grade. I was there right up front in the audience when President Reagan came to Hamilton in 1984. But I am a South Jersey girl through and through, worked on a blueberry farm. When I hear people like Michael Bloomberg insulting women in the workplace, insulting farmers, that it's such an easy skill, anybody can do it, then that's why I double down my commitment to public service and my commitment to the electoral process, democracy in action. We've got to make sure people feel comfortable to state who they are and what they believe and why they're engaged and not just enraged all the time. And I'm very proud to work for the United States of America. And I took an oath to the Constitution. I work for the country that's been so great to all of us. And it is a privilege and a blessing every day to walk through the doors of the White House.
We're visiting with Kellyanne Conway, senior counselor to the President of the United States, President Trump. And can you believe I can, and we predicted it, we just never know what the next thing is going to be. They, meaning the anti-Trump media, which is about 91% of all media anti-Trump. And still, this Gallup polling that now is not just an outlier, this is consistent Gallup polling. The president's numbers are incredible when you look at the fact that exactly 6% of Democrats will say he's doing a good job. And that is just outrageous. So you get cumed with a 0, and he's basically at near 50% approval with many of the different items that are being polled well into the 60s in terms of the economy and his stewardship of that and so on and so forth. But here we go again, Kellyanne. Russia is back in the news. At least they're trying. I know. I don't even want to talk about it. But Russia is in the news, and this media will just keep making stuff up, won't they?
It's incredibly pathetic. And I'll tell you that there are many articles written about the fact that the Obama administration was warned about Russian interference in 2016. I was the campaign manager for Trump, Pence, as you say, take it into its successful conclusion. And we were underinformed about this. We may have been told 1 or 2 things, but it was very glib. It was in passing. It wasn't, nobody sounded the alarm bells and said we need to bring Trump and Clinton together and brief everybody immediately with their senior team. There was none of that. And we all know why. Because President Obama and Vice President Biden, who he's all but abandoned, by the way, they thought Hillary Clinton would win.
Yeah.
And so they didn't sound the alarm bells. And the thing about Russia back in the news is very simple. It goes to my original point, Harry, which is then we're not telling people what they need to know, news that you can actually use. So we can talk about biased coverage. That's an easy one. But let's talk about incomplete coverage. Every time the words Russia are uttered today, we are not telling the single mom who has 2 jobs, 2 kids, and 2 commutes, and still no health care almost 10 years since Obamacare became the law of the land. We're not telling her that help is on the way. We're not telling her all the opportunities she's going to have to avail herself and her children of the first meaningful health care coverage in that decade. We're not telling the farmers, and we're not telling the manufacturers, and we're not telling the property owners and small business owners and public school parents that because of our deregulation, they've got more freedom now. We're not telling people like Janiyah, the young 4th grade girl and her mom who sat in the First Lady's box at the State of the Union recently and is now the beneficiary of an opportunity scholarship, that there are 50,000 other students like her on a waiting list in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but you've got to Tom Wolf, the Democratic governor there, standing in the way of them having a better opportunity. So every time you hear Russia, think of all the things you're not hearing about with America. And I'll tell you, they can talk about Russia all day long. I'm going to talk about, and to America, all day long. And let's make something very clear. If they had spent all their time and treasure and talent, that was generous of me, in the Congress these last couple of years, Harry, investigating Russian interference and being serious about that rather than, quote, Russia collusion with the Trump 2016 campaign. They were more concerned about Russia as goes 2016 than Russia as goes 2020. So excuse me if I'm not clutching my pearls and, tearing my hair out if they're saying Russia, Russia, Russia going into 2020. They know they've got a problem on their hands. They've wasted all this time trying to remove Donald Trump from the White House and did not focus sufficiently on the one way that you can do that every 4 years through the ballot box, through our democracy. They don't have a clue how to beat him. And the media, look, the mainstream media, who is very rough and unfair on the president and those of us around him, no doubt, they can't quit Donald Trump and they can't beat Donald Trump. Their ratings would go way down without him. Their book fees, their speaking fees, they all have agents. I don't. I'm just a little lowly public servant. They can't beat him and they can't quit him. And they wasted all this time not figuring out how to beat him at the ballot box. But that's why I'm here in New Jersey. I'm speaking at a Lincoln Day dinner here in South Jersey. I'm going to talk about 2020 in my personal capacity. The Republican members of Congress, those congressional seats, got all but wiped out, all but one in 2018. And that needs to be turned around. You've got districts like Malinowski in New Jersey 7 and Mikey Sherrill. That's a woman in New Jersey 11. Those are +3 Republican districts. And in the case of New Jersey 11, the Frelinghuysen district, President Trump won that district in 2016, even though he hardly competed here in New Jersey. And we've got to go into those districts and talk about the record.
Kellyanne, we're going to go from one GOP member of Congress in New Jersey, Chris Smith, to now 2 with Van Drew, and I believe Tom Kean Jr. is going to grab a seat. That's 3, and I think we have a reasonable chance to get 1 or 2 more. If New Jersey can deliver a net 3 or 4 pickups, we're going to get the 19 necessary to retire the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand.
That's right, and every time people say you can't win, we're a blue state. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let people paint you with a broad brush here in New Jersey or anywhere else. I don't want to hear women only care about abortion, Hispanics only care about immigration. New Jersey's liberal, it's blue. Folks, our leadership, quote unquote, is Phil Murphy as your governor, Menendez and Booker as your senators. We have got to do better than this. That is a laughing stock. I mean, Cory Booker, as I said the day he announced his presidential run, he sounds like a Hallmark card more than a United States senator. Trying to brag to you about his great leadership and great wins in the United States Senate, and that the whole woke Democratic Party, we're woke. Woke is a joke. Woke is broke. The Democratic presidential primary system has spit out Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, these candidates of color. They've spit them out, and we're stuck with a bunch of white septuagenarians. I don't care about people's. It doesn't matter to me about their race and their gender. What matters to me about is their position on issues. But I just think it's really delicious irony. Also, they've always gone for the young, up-and-coming, fresh-face, energetic, outside of Washington, young family Democrat, Bill Clinton and JFK and Barack Obama. Even Jimmy Carter was a 52-year-old governor of Georgia when he was elected president, Harry. And now Donald Trump so lives rent-free in all their heads that their business model is who's electable, and Biden's not even delectable. Bloomberg can't put a sentence together.
And look how they're cheating Bernie.
Is all the king's money. And look how they're beating up Bernie. Bernie is electable. Bernie beat Hillary in 22 states last time, ladies and gentlemen. He won over 13 million votes and over 1,800 delegates. And the idea that he's going to go out quietly or easily is a joke. But Bernie's the standard bearer for the party. He's surrounded by Cynthia Nixon, AOC. That's where the Democratic Party is going now. Like the Democratic Party in South Jersey I grew up around. Forget it. They accepted people who were pro-life, who were pro-Second Amendment, who said, gee, I think I'm paying too much in taxes. I think the public school system could use some improvements. That's not denigrating our teachers. It's uplifting them and saying you deserve better, and as do our students. And so that Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore. We don't see it. I'm just happy to be in South Jersey talking about the fact that New Jersey, despite our tax and regulating governor, Phil Murphy, that we've created over 139,000 jobs since President Trump was elected. That includes over 10,000 manufacturing jobs. And you've got our own Congressman Jeff Van Drew. Let's give a shout out to him again. Thank you for saying that, South Jersey's Jeff Van Drew. So he was a Democrat for many years. He but always felt a little uncomfortable with the leftward drift of his party. He said that publicly. He said it privately. But it was impeachment that really set him over. He is the first member of Congress in U.S. history to go from the majority party to the minority party in the Congress. Think about that. These party switchers usually go from minority to majority to the chairmanships to get the power. He lost his committee assignments as a majority member, but he said, we're wasting time on impeachment, which wasn't going to go anywhere. And he said, we're not talking to the veterans. We're not talking about the F-35s coming here to South Jersey. We're not talking about keeping this economy humming. So good for him. That takes real. I think it takes real moxie to be able to do that. And look at what they did. They just spat him out immediately in the Democratic Party. They forgot they ever met him.
True. They actually threatened him even before he left that they weren't going to keep him on the line. Awful. Kellyanne, I know you have to run. I'm going to ask you if you would.
But I'll be back.
I love that. But hold for me for 1 minute. There's one thing I have to pass along. If you could just stay for a minute, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Kellyanne Conway. Let me say this now that she's gone because, in fairness, they get hit with bogus Hatch Act threats, Hatch Act complaints. Oh, you did politics. I mean, it's sick. You look at what this Obama freak administration did. I mean, debased every institution of the government, violated everything there was. You had Holder was allowed to be Obama's wingman. But here we have Barr, who is not Trump's wingman. And by the way, Kellyanne, please pass on to my former boss, your current boss, our great president, President Trump. He was vindicated yesterday, and so was our Attorney General Barr, because the Amy Berman Jackson decision, which was 40 months, which was exactly what the redo of the false, the totally wrong, over-the-top recommendation of 7.5 to 9 years, because she wasn't bound by that recommendation, the new recommendation, and that's what she applied. So that proves that the 7.5 to 9 years, it's not 7 to 9, it's 7.5. They went full 4 extra months on top of 7 months that they wanted for my friend Roger Stone, my friend of 40 years. They were vindicated, both of them, yesterday. Let me get the break in because I know that Kellyanne has to go and I have to pass something on to her. We'll be back. Coming up in just a few minutes, John Pence, the Deputy Executive Director, Trump Pence 2020. Then we have the co-chairman of the Republican National Committee a little later in the program, and former FBI senior agent retired Gary Aldrich coming up. It's a great Friday here on this program.